Today on Locked On Red Wings, Colorado looked like a Stanley Cup champion. The Red Wings did not. Nedeljkovic waived and clears, so he's going down to Grand Rapids. And also, hey, Lucas Raymond's second star of the week in the NHL.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for the Daily J, a WWJ News Radio podcast, while Scotty's a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, as well as the host of Locked On Tigers. And the Red Wings fell 6-3 to the Colorado Avalanche, and it was an ugly game. I'm going to be real with you guys. God has thrown us a bone in this episode, Scotty, in which we have so much to talk about that we don't have to dwell too much on what was a awful game against the reigning Stanley Cup champions. So, I mean, we'll get to the most important things, and I'm sure I'm going to say we're not going to talk about it for too long, but we'll get fired up and just keep complaining and crying about how that game went. But, you know, we also have to talk about the Nedeljkovic situation as he was put on waivers, like, again. And we just, you know what it is, Scotty, is we just should not record before 2 p.m. on any given Sunday because that's when the waiver wire comes out. This is the second time that's happened.
Yeah.
But we got to talk about that because we recorded on Sunday before the Ned news came out, and now he has since cleared. Raymond was named the second star of the week, so we'll give him a little bit of props because he's been heating up. And then also, thankfully, thank you, Lord, we have a game, or NHL schedulers in this case, we have a game preview to get to as well, as the Red Wings are on a back-to-back playing in Arizona on Tuesday night. Yes, Tuesday night. See, I got the day right this time.
You nailed it.
But, Scotty, I'm going to let you lead things off with this game recap because I'm at a loss for words. I want to put the onus on you to break down this game.
That's great, man. I'm not nearly as down as you are after this one. And that's not to say that this was not a really brutal game to watch, because it absolutely was. But like, you can go back and listen to our game preview. Like, this was kind of expected. Like, I don't know. Like, this doesn't really change anything for me. Like, I'm not going game to game and like each performance is like significantly swaying me in like a different direction of like how I feel about this team. Like, not that I expected them to look this bad, because they looked really brutal, even despite, like, we'll talk about the reffing, but even despite that, like, you know, you can say, oh, like, they, you know, 2 goals, whatever, like that. The Avalanche looks significantly better than you for almost all 60. Like that, like, whatever. They outclassed you and they looked better, but in the same breath, like, they're a better team, and that's like kind of what I expected going into the game, even if it wasn't this dramatic. So not a great game, obviously. I'm not trying to say anything but that. Like, this was a really brutal performance, and the biggest thing is just the continuation of a conversation we've had a lot, in which the defense continuously is getting it's Swiss cheese. Like, and it's not even like they are out shooting, like their opponents are out shooting the Wings by like 30 every night. Like, it's not like it's high volume necessarily, but it is all high danger. All, like, every single shot they give up is like, oh, that has a legitimate chance of finding the back of the net. And you can't do that against bad teams. Nonetheless, against good teams. And we've seen that 2 nights in a row against a really bad team and a really good team. So, like, not, and I know that we're the goalie defenders and whatever, and Husso got pulled, and certainly he did not have a great game and should have squeezed a little harder on a couple of them, and probably could have prevented a couple of goals. But, I mean, one really brutal penalty call that dude tackled him and it wasn't a pen. And then just really bad defense in front of him, man. I'm like you. I am also at a loss for words on how else we can really articulate just how many high danger shots this defense gives up on a nightly basis.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the defense and high danger shots, and people can go back and listen to our thoughts on Monday's episode if they want to hear us rant and rave about how bad this team is in their own defensive zone, because you said it. They didn't give up a high volume number of shots. They were outshot 29-27 in this game. Avalanche didn't even have 30 shots, but the Red Wings gave up 6 goals.
Right.
And obviously that first goal notwithstanding, a lot of these were, Cale Makar just swooping down low, cutting across the crease.
Insane.
And again, there was another missed call in that instance, and we'll talk about that. But Cale Makar, Nathan MacKinnon's, I think both Nathan MacKinnon's goals, he had 2 in this one, as did Cale Makar.
Yeah.
There was a power play goal where somebody was unattended, backdoor. Comfer was right out in front of the net well. It just,
the power play was just, and it wasn't even like trickery. Like, it wasn't even like, oh, like he looped around or like did so. Like, he just went from one side of the front post to the back post, and no one picked him up, and he was wide open. Like, it's not even like crazy schemes or like, oh, like that's tough to defend. Like, no, he skated backwards 2 feet and was then just wide open, and it was just left backdoor. And like, obviously the MacKinnon thing, like the second goal of his at least, wasn't exactly terrible defense per se because it was a breakaway, but still like a horrible turnover and just like get your stick lifted and Bob's your uncle. Like, it's just really sloppy defense on a consistent basis.
Yeah,
man.
I don't understand how anyone can expect a goaltender to put up great save percentages when the team literally hangs him out to dry on almost every single goal. And again, we're the goalie defenders, which is fine. And again, Husso didn't have a great game. There was at least 2 goals where I think he should have had, but that's not the point. The point is that the team in front of him isn't helping him out at all, like in any stretch of the imagination. And again, that when we say defense, we're not talking about just the defenseman. We're talking about the team's defensive scheme. It just doesn't work, and it hasn't been working. And if this game was in a vacuum, Scotty, I wouldn't be as upset as I am. You lost 6-3 to the Colorado Avalanche, who are the reigning Stanley Cup champions, and you're a team that's rebuilding, looking to take that next step forward. But this kind of game, I'd be able to shrug it off if this was just in a vacuum. But this kind of game accentuates everything we have been saying for the last couple of weeks, and like, this team needs a superstar. They have 2. Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon took over this game. MacKinnon, I think, had a 3-point night.
I think he had 4.
He had 4. Cale Makar had 2 goals, and I think he had also 1 other assist, so he had a 3-point night. Those 2 guys have the ability to take over the game, and they do in every single sense of the word. And outside of that, this game also, because again, I would be able to accept it in a vacuum if it was just this game, but it's not just this game. Prashant Iyer had been tweeting throughout the game, and again, fantastic follow. He tweets out all the fun statistics, and he also tweets out all the unfun statistics. This was an unfun statistic game. This was the 5th time in the last 10 games they had been down 4-0, and it was the 3rd time in the last 10 games they had been down 5-0. And then he just tweeted out
in the last 9.
3rd in the last 9 they had been down 5-0.
A little worse, yeah.
And then he just tweeted out a second ago. Let's see if I can re-find that tweet. Where I just saw it. Wings have given up 5 or more goals 12 times in 42 games, which, halfway point through the season. That's 28%, 28.6% of their games. They have given up 5 or more goals.
That's more often than 1 out of every 4 games. Yeah.
Their defense scheme just isn't working and needs to be completely reworked at this point. I'm just going to say it. And again, I know you were playing the Colorado Avalanche. So like, in a vacuum, again, this just serves to show how much farther you have to go. But it's just not this game. We don't play in a vacuum. This is the 3rd time in the last 9 games you've given up a 5-0 lead. Or not given up, but been under a 5-0 lead.
Deficit, 5-0.
And then you try to fight back at the end of the game. They outscored the Colorado Avalanche 3-1 throughout the rest of the game after going down 5-0. Like, you can't.
They just do it every night.
The reason why the shots were close in this game is because, again, in the 3rd period, they're like, okay, well, now let's start playing hockey. And part of that is because Colorado was up 5-0 and took their foot off the gas pedal and started sitting guys.
For sure.
You don't have to play Nathan MacKinnon, as much as you have to if you're up 5-0. Same with Cale Makar. Like, you can't win hockey games that way. So yes, I am emotional and I am upset because we were recording this right after the game has ended. But I'm just sick and tired of watching this team get down big and then trying to mount a comeback. You can't win that way. And it's looking and it's feeling like the wheels have fallen off. And it's what we saw last year with this team. At least last year, it waited until after the All-Star break where the wheels started coming off. You started losing games big. Granted, they're scoring goals late to make it so it doesn't look like you're losing that big, but it still has that same aura. You're still losing these games and you're still giving up huge leads.
Yeah, for sure. And look, like we've talked about the, consistently inconsistent thing over and over again. Like this is all stuff that we've covered a lot. Um, the high points of this year are still like noticeably and like objectively much higher.
Yeah.
Like less than a week ago, we beat Toronto. Like, and I know that they didn't have Matthews, whatever. I don't care. Like, you're not that good of a team if your entire offense is relying on one person. Like, I don't care how good they are. So like, it's like that was a very good performance. We talked about the defense in that one and how it looked like a lot better. And I'm not saying that the defense is ever going to come back, but because we've been proven wrong there a little few too many times. But this is still I guess my point is just like at the end of the day, if someone had told us going into the season that at some point, even if it was only for 24 hours after New Year's, this team would have been fourth in the division. And in the middle of January, we're like 3 points, 4 points out of like fourth now, somewhere like 2 to 3, somewhere around there, 3, give or take a point out of fourth. I think we probably look and go like, yeah, that's pretty much what we expect. So like, I think it's
just that lack of consistency. Because you're right. Everything you just said is 100% spot on, Scotty. Like if you look at it, if you take a step back and we had that ability to see where we would be at back at the start of the season, you're right. We'd be like, okay, that's, right, expected
right.
where we
But
thought we would be. It's the peaks and the valleys that are
peaks
just
and the
driving
valleys
it
being as dramatic of rises and falls as they are is what certainly makes this a lot. Like if we were just beating every team that was objectively worse than us and losing to every team objectively better than us, I think a lot more people would be a lot more level-headed. But especially on social media, the last like 24 hours out of nowhere, everybody's just gone into a very argumentative mode about the current state of the Red Wings. So
yeah. We got to get to a break, but when we come back, we'll talk about the missed calls and then we'll just move on because we got a lot to get to. Got to talk to you guys today about betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to basketball, the National Hockey League, and hey, pitchers and catchers reporting 28 days, just 4 weeks away. So that's coming up real fast.
Maybe.
If you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Segment 2, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, the missed calls by the ref. The first goal, Nathan MacKinnon ran into Husso's skate, the one skate that was outside the crease, which caused Husso to fall and not make the ability to make the save. Now, here's where the controversy comes in, is whether or not that counts as goaltender interference. And I am of the mindset that when you look at the rule book, that yes, it was still goaltender interference from the standpoint that while he was outside the crease, and if a goalie's outside the crease, you can make incidental contact with him as
one
long
foot might have been
as
in that crease, though, for being completely honest. But sure,
okay,
keep going.
But the 1 foot was absolutely in the crease, but they're considering it where the contact happened outside
for
the
sure.
crease, which whatever,
Fine.
we're splitting hairs, but sure. If it's incidental contact, but the player making the contact has to make a reasonable effort to avoid the contact, which MacKinnon did not do, i.e., goaltender interference, no goal. But regardless of the goaltender interference, we live in a society, Scotty, where a goaltender can be interfered with, not goal. And Larry Murphy had a wonderful rant in between periods. But we live in a world where a goalie can be interfered with when he's just a hair outside of his crease, but not inside the crease, but also not behind the net or not like by the dots. Like you can, so it's only okay to interfere with the goalie if they're just a pubic hair's width outside of the crease. Like it's nuts, man. If Husso was playing the puck behind the net and MacKinnon had come by and tripped him up with his skate like he had, that would have been an interference penalty, a tripping penalty, whatever you would want to call it. But because he was just barely 1 foot outside of the crease, Now it's not a penalty. It makes no difference. He doesn't have the puck. He interfered with Husso. Husso couldn't make the play. Goalie interference or not, it's still interference. And then, of course, there's the missed call. Makar's second goal, I believe it was, where Mackinnon dropped the puck off. Perron tried to drop off Mackinnon to go chase Makar, and Mackinnon checked him, so he knocked him over and couldn't make the play, which is another interference that Makar directly scored on. And then, like 5 minutes later, they cross-check interfered Larkin, so he couldn't get to the puck, and that wasn't called. It's just autonomous calls on the refs' part in this game.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like like I said earlier, it's certainly not an excuse to look as bad as they did. Like they would have lost anyway, whether we like it or not. But yeah,
That's exactly
I mean,
it, though.
I don't really have anything else to say. Like, yes, really brutal calls. Like, yeah, like I can't get too passionate about it because of how bad the team looked. Like, but yeah, like obviously really really bad calls, and I disagree wholeheartedly with the call on the first one and the no call on the second one are both pretty blatant in my eyes that they shouldn't have gone the right way. And even people that like weren't fans of either of these two teams were like that for the goalie interference call, especially. It's like that's brutal. Like that really is like a brutal call for a team that certainly didn't need any help today.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? Like you said, Scotty, no use in getting too fired up over it. They were brutal missed calls, non-calls, whatever you want to call them. But the team would have still lost regardless because Colorado just outclassed you in every facet of this game. They looked, again, like the reigning Stanley Cup champions. Let's see. In terms of players that did play well, I guess Rasmussen and Kopp had a really good game. I think Kopp had a goal and an assist in this one. They both had Corsi fours of 80% and expected goals for percentage of 96% at even strength 5-on-5. It's one of those games where that kind of goes unnoticed because everything else is going so poorly. But their possession numbers in this game, Andrew Kopp, when he was on the ice, 17 shot attempts for, 4 shot attempts against. Michael Rasmussen, 16 for, 4 against. You know, they were productive at creating shot attempts. Now, granted, a lot of that probably came in the third period when the team began to mount a comeback. So you kind of want to like not look at it as like a game whole, but hey, I guess take any good news where you can get it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think we do a pretty decent job of pulling good and bad from pretty much all games, and I think that is certainly one of them for sure.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. That's it. I think Moritz Seider's goal with like 30 seconds left is going to end up going to David Perron too, because it looked like he may have tipped it.
Yeah.
I've been refreshing, seeing if they update it, but they haven't yet. So we'll see. They probably figure it doesn't matter. But
probably.
Either way, I think Moritz Seider comes away with 2 points in this game. Nope, just one. Goal or assist either way. Speaking of good news, Lucas Raymond, he was your second star of the week. 7 points in 3 games played. 3 goals, 4 assists. Honest to God, did not like that kind of like when he was named, you know, third because of this team's struggles in this stretch. Now, granted, they won back-to-back games in that stretch as well. But he's been flying under the radar all season long as he's been heating up. You know, we were talking about it last week, how, you know, he's heating up and like now he's on pace to surpass his point total from last year. And it just didn't click in my mind. Like, oh, 7 points in 3 games. That's pretty dang good.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I think we actually made a comment about that. I don't think it was yesterday. It was either yesterday or the end of last week, where we had just talked about the fact that like he had been pretty nice lately, and that he had been heating up, and that pretty much everything you just said, that like it's kind of going under the radar just because of. There are bigger stories than him on the team in good ways, and there are certainly a lot worse stories on the team too, and for the bad ways. So it's just kind of one of those things where the everybody else moving around so much that his improved production, at least from the beginning of the season, has kind of gone unnoticed for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's sitting at 30 points in 41 games played, where last year he had 57 points in 82 games played. So like just barely better, on pace for better than his rookie year,
Yeah.
But still, I mean, 57 points in 82 as a rookie is really good. And if you can get to 60 points, I mean, that, you know, for a lot of fear over a sophomore slump, that goes a long way to kind of dashing those fears away. So
yeah, absolutely.
But let's get to our second ad read. We'll come back and we'll talk about Nedeljkovic, and then we'll briefly set up the preview for the game against the Arizona Coyotes. But first, got to talk to you guys today about AG1. Our next our next partner has a product. I tried combining partner and product there. It doesn't work. That you're going to want to use literally every day. Start taking AG1 because this stuff, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all those things. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It's cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's cheaper than getting all the different supplements yourself. Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up on a complicated supplement routine to recover. It cost him $100 a day. This costs you less than $3 a day. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Segment 3, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. Scotty, after we recorded yesterday, news came out. Alex Nedeljkovic was placed on waivers. And then today at 2:00, he cleared those waivers. So he and his $3 million cap hit are now permanently. We don't know if that's for sure, but for the time being, he will remain in Grand Rapids. And the Red Wings have decided to go with Ville Husso and Magnus Hellberg as their goaltending tandem. What are our thoughts on that matter?
Well, I mean, he hasn't been very good at the NHL level. So I think it's hard to be too up in arms and really have a solid argument against doing so. I think really the debate is if he was going to get picked up, how upset were you going to be? I think that was more of a debate than like the actual decision to do it. Because I think it was pretty straightforward. Not, if you want to have the conversation of Hellberg or him, like certainly that's one, I guess. But at the end of the day, you're talking about a comfortable backup, and where Husso is going to get a lot more of the looks in net. So not really the end of the world. And yeah, I mean, like I said, Ned has not been very productive at the NHL level. So I have a hard time believing anyone was really losing sleep over the decision. But like I said, I do think the main thing is not really if he was going to get picked up or not, because I think that this is another one where the contract was just not worth the production and the age and everything, given where he's at situationally. But I think that the real debate was, if he were to get picked up, was that like for you personally, was that a detrimental thing? Would you have been super upset, or would have kind of just been okay, like on to the next one type of thing? Count your losses, I guess.
I mean, I think you kind of hit all the points right on the head as to why he was waived. I mean, you could, with Robert Hagg coming off of injury, you needed a roster spot.
Yep.
And with the conditioning stint that Ned had, the Red Wings could no longer afford to play the whole 3 goalie game because he had to come back. And are you going to keep the carousel and waive a play? It just doesn't make sense to do this any longer. So they made a decision. Magnus Hellberg had been playing better and as a backup than Nedeljkovic did. And, Nedeljkovic, like you just pointed out, $3 million cap hit, hadn't been playing well at the NHL level, wasn't a huge risk to lose him. And obviously it worked out because they didn't. So, I mean, the enigma's over.
Right.
No more 3 goalies. We got 2 now, and it's Magnus Hellberg's your backup. And, kudos to him. I think he's been playing well enough to earn that backup role. He had to come in a relief today, and I think the only goal he gave up was that breakaway goal from Nathan Mackinnon, and I'm not going to fault him for that. Not a lot of goalies in the league could stop a breakaway from Nathan Mackinnon. So, you know what? The biggest thing, everything logically makes sense. I was still emotionally a little stricken when they waived him, just because we were such we rooted for Nedeljkovic so much from last season into this year, like really rooted for him to be the guy. But just this year he didn't have it. And his contract's expiring. And right now I don't think there's a big reason there. I don't think there's a big possibility that they're going to bring him back at this point.
No, for sure. Which, and this sparked a whole like Steve Yzerman discourse online, which I thought was preposterous.
Let's save that conversation for another day.
No, for sure. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole because this is doesn't, even in spite of this, and even if he doesn't come back and never plays for the Wings ever again, it's still a like solid trade that everyone would make. But regardless, besides the point, no, like this is a situation. I think you're right. Really, I guess is what I can just summarize.
No, you're right.
You're right. What?
You're right.
No, you're right.
No, you're right.
I think that it's the odds of him playing for the Wings again aren't zero, because if Hallberg struggles, like that's certainly they could just, I guess, bring him back up and whatnot, I guess. But like at this point, why even would you? Like he cleared waivers, he's down. It wouldn't shock me if that was kind of it, barring injury, if that was kind of it for the Wings at the NHL level. So and he struggled at the second half of last season too. Like this wasn't like this year was this like new thing, and our expectations definitely fell off a cliff throughout the year and what we would expect from net on a night in and night out basis. I mean, we were talking about having like one of the cooler and like this great goalie tandem coming into the season, and like how quickly did that
we thought it could be one of the best and
flutter away, right? Just and that certainly isn't because of Husso. So something that you kind of started seeing cracks last year, but again, last year was also a horrible defensive unit, so you kind of gave him a little bit of a pass, and this year just caught up with him.
I feel like this year's less the unit and more the scheme.
Yeah, and when one goalie is able to like still have good nights and one isn't, like that's kind of I think all the evidence you really need. So yeah, obviously wish him nothing but the best. Hope that he can kind of turn it around, whether it's here or elsewhere. But I don't have any reservations about this being the right or wrong move. I think we're all pretty in agreement that this was something that needed to happen, and I don't think anyone's shocked. And yeah,
I think not underrated, it's not the right word, but like an undersold part of the storyline here regarding Nedeljkovic is his trade value just takes a complete and utter hit over his just really bad season. I mean, if this team was out of the playoff hunt come the trade deadline and you're going to be sellers, which let's be honest, you're probably going to be sellers this trade deadline regardless, because we were always talking about finishing outside the playoffs. And if you're not going to be in the playoffs, you might as well try to gain assets for the future. He was always going to be on the table to be a asset, but now him having as bad of a year as he did to get sent down to the Grand Rapids Griffins, I mean, no one's going to want to pick up that contract. You'd have to have a really desperate team. But even then, like what kind of desperate team, playoff caliber team looking for a goaltender is going to want a goalie with an 8.5 save percentage resting in the
Is it expiring?
It is, but like,
okay, so like, yeah, no. Yeah. Just and like, if you really are like, oh, like I still think Ned has some left in the tank, then like, wait 6 months and take a stab at it then. Like, there's no point.
Yeah, that does stink, but whatever. I mean, what are you gonna do about it at this point?
Like again, like it's certainly our expectations for the what is happening in net are certainly a lot different from where they were going into opening night. But at this point, it's been a very clear starter backup, not even a 1A, 1B situation in net. And so at the end of the day, we're talking about a backup goalie, and
you took the over in the Colorado game, right? You took the over in the Colorado game.
What?
You took the over in the Colorado game, right? I'm just not thinking about this. All right, yeah, you got that one right.
Yeah,
it was 6.5, and it finished at 8. So yeah, it was pretty good pick on your part.
Yeah, not bad, man.
Red Wings playing Arizona. We're already at the 30-minute mark, so we got to make this brief. But Red Wings playing the
I don't
Arizona
think there's really
Coyotes.
too much to say besides there's no excuse to lose.
Oh, God, they're one of the worst teams in the league. I think they're third from last or something like that. They're last in their own division. Oh,
Yeah,
no,
but
they're not. They're
even like
seventh in the
besides that, they're on an
Oh,
L9.
Chicago. L9. Yep. They're on a 9-game losing streak. They're seventh in their division, 13, 25, and 5. They're playing out of a college ice rink right now.
You're
Clayton
going to be
Keller.
playing a team on a 9-game losing streak in front of 5,000 fans, and probably half of them are going to be Red Wings fans.
Yes.
Like there is no
Or college
reason.
students.
There's no reason for you to lose this hockey game.
It's going to be half college students, 25% Red Wings fans, and then 25% empty seats. So, I mean, there's no reason to lose this game. And if you're the Red Wings, you're looking at the Arizona Coyotes as a team that you're just going to want to go out there and beat the crap out of because you're so angry over how you've performed the last two games. You lost 4-3, but you've played bad 40 minutes against two teams, one really bad, one really, really good, and you're sick of it. You go out there and you just put a hurting on Arizona. Now, Magnus Hellberg's probably going to get the start in this one after Ville Husso started this last game, didn't finish it, but started it. But, I mean, Clayton Keller is their leading goal scorer. He's got 38 points in 43 games played. After that, it's 28 points in 43 games played for Shane Gostisbehere. So, like, it's a huge offensive drop-off. And goaltending-wise, they're not very good either. Karel, I'm not going to try and pronounce that. Velmelka, I think something along those lines. I'm really bad at pronouncing European names. But his save percentage is .902. He had a really, really strong start to the season, but kind of like Husso this year and Ned last year, eventually your bad team in front of you gets to you and you start letting in more goals. Connor Ingram's their backup. He's got an .889 save percentage. So they're 29th in the league at Corsi 4 at 5-on-5. This is a bad team. The organization is bad. The owners are bad. Their podcast, fantastic. Robin does a great job. Go listen to her.
Facts.
But I mean, she jumps through hoops and she goes to all the council meetings about the new arena.
Man.
Best thing about their organization is the Locked On Coyotes podcast. They're not even affiliated.
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Go check her out. But this organization is a mess, like the Vancouver Canucks, but that's a different conversation. So go out there and beat the crap out of them, man. That's the end of the line.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, I don't know what else needs to be said. Just
no, there's no point in compare. Like, we're better than everything. And like, if you lose, that's inexcusable pretty much at this point.
I know you lost to them bad last year, but just go. I don't have analysis, guys. Just do your job.
Correct.
Win a hockey game against a really bad team, like you should. We talked about the early part of the season is the expectation is you always beat the teams worse than you and you compete with the teams better than you. That was the goal. And, you lost to Columbus, but you beat them 2 out of 3 times you played them. I think you beat Arizona the first time you played them. Let me double check here. As they've done once already. One game already. Yeah, Red Wings won 4-3 in a shootout. So you barely beat the Coyotes.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You remember that?
I do now.
It was brutal. Oh. Yeah, I will not forget that one.
All right. I'm upset. I'm emotional over this loss to the Colorado Avalanche. So let's end it there. Scotty, you got any final thoughts, man?
We ball.
We'll be back tomorrow with a game recap. 9:00 game, Scotty. So it's going to be a late one for us. Stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.